This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. That's my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today, a film that I saw when I was 15 years old back in 1971, and which looks a lot different today now that I'm in my late 60s. And it's also a film that made me wonder, could this even be made today? Let's check it out. Today's film is Carnal Knowledge from 1971, 98 minutes long, in color. This is about the sexual and emotional confusion of two men beginning in their college days in the 1940s and continuing through the 1960s and the early 1970s. That's a very basic plot outline of what this is about. No spoilers here about anything that happens. But what you should know about this film, first of all, is that it's a film about misogyny. The writer himself said it's, quote, a story about how heterosexual men don't like women. And indeed, the two main male characters here are totally selfish, totally self-centered, totally sexist. The writer also said he got the idea for this film simply by listening to how men talked around him in his everyday life. Specifically, what I'm talking about in this film is these two guys discuss various parts of a woman's body, part by part, and what they like, what they don't like, how big certain parts should be or how small they should be, what their personalities are like, including specific women they've encountered or have seen. And at the beginning, they're at a party in college, and it's kind of a mixer. So they're looking at different women, and one guy says to the other, you can have her if you want her. So it's really totally objectifying these women. And they also give, once they date these women for a while, they tell each other a play-by-play description of how far they got with them sexually. I was watching this, I was thinking, okay, so do guys really talk like this? And I will have to say that guys do talk like this, but in my experience, they talk like that in junior high and in high school, where your hormones are raging and you're just becoming aware of sexuality, and if you're a guy, aware of women and stuff, and trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. But these guys here are in college. So I thought, wow, they're talking like middle school and high school students. So kind of arrested development on their part, I thought. I mentioned where the writer got his ideas, and the writer here is Jules Feiffer. Not so well known probably nowadays, but he was quite popular back in the day. He was a playwright and he was a cartoonist, and he wrote regularly for the Village Voice, a newspaper out of New York City, which I believe is now defunct. But he wrote this as a play, which I could see, even though I didn't feel it was stagey at all. But after I watched it and then I learned that it was a play, I thought, okay, I could see this as a play. But again, not stagey, at least not to me. He first offered this to Alan Arkin to direct this, because Alan Arkin had just directed Little Murders, which was a Jules Feiffer play. He did the film of Little Murders. But Alan Arkin passed. He gave it to Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols wanted to do it. This comes after Mike Nichols' films The Graduate and Catch-22. Now, speaking of Catch-22, Art Garfunkel was in that film of Simon and Garfunkel, of course. Mike Nichols cast him in Catch-22, really liked him, so he wanted him for Carnal Knowledge. Apparently, this led to the breakup of Simon and Garfunkel, because Garfunkel didn't tell Simon he was going to go away for a while and make Carnal Knowledge, so I guess Simon wasn't happy about that and led to their breakup at that point. Also starring in this film is Jack Nicholson, probably I would say the lead role. Mike Nichols really liked him in Easy Rider. This is in between Jack Nicholson's films Five Easy Pieces and The Last Detail, soon to be followed by Chinatown. So really what I consider Jack Nicholson's prime of his career. And Jules Feiffer thought Jack Nicholson is probably the only actor who can pull this role off. And on the set, Jack Nicholson was friends with everybody, all the actors. He even knew all the crew members by name and had like inside jokes with them and stuff. The fourth lead here is Candice Bergen. She also was very social with all the actors and the crew members. And then sort of an outlier, Anne Margaret, mainly kept to herself on the set. Jules Pfeiffer was not so sure about casting her, because when he thought of Anne Margaret, he thought of Bye Bye Birdie, and he thought of Kitten with a Whip. Well, the role here is light years away from those roles, believe me. And she's really a high point of the film, and she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this film as well. And really, these four characters are it. There are a couple of other characters that show up. Some have lines, some don't. But really, it's about these four people. There's a very memorable and controversial scene between Nicholson and Anne Margaret. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. It's pretty obvious. It's a very raw argument they're having. Mike Nichols debated whether to even shoot this scene or whether to include it in the film. He was very troubled by it because it was rather disturbing, but he went ahead and did it. And in this, during this argument in the film, Nicholson calls Anne Margaret the C word. Now, I have no recollection of that when I saw this film in '71 and a couple times thereafter. And I think in '71, I wouldn't even know what that word means. So what was it like watching this film so many decades later? Well, obviously, I'm more aware of what misogyny means. I'm more aware of how that shows up in people's speech and in certain pieces of art and film, etc. And I was surprised watching this so many years later at the frankness of the language and the frankness of the situations, especially for a film from 1971. It was a controversial film. There was an obscenity case. It turns out the obscenity case was about a locker room scene where Jack Nicholson is, just showered and he's toweling himself off. He's not fully naked, but close to it. I thought, really, that was your problem with the film? Okay. But watching this, it made me think of two other films. It made me think of Sex, Lies, and Videotape from 1989, mainly because that was also a film about sex and also centered on four characters. It also made me think of this film, In the Company of Men, from 1997, because that's really a lot about misogyny as well, and a really cruel film, and people don't really talk about that film very much anymore. But what was most obvious to me watching this film so many years later was how unsympathetic and how pitiful those two main male characters are. So it's not a film for everybody. I want to be clear about that, and I'm not sure if this is a good analogy or not, but if you watch my channel, you know I'm a big horror film fan. But what I don't like is I don't like scenes of torture porn. I'm thinking of a film like Terrifier, which I never made it all the way through once a certain scene happened. I find that kind of thing degrading. I find it too violent, cruel, gratuitous, not artistic, and not funny. And some people, especially women, may think the same thing about carnal knowledge. I'm not sure, if you're not sure what toxic masculinity means, watch this film and I think you'll know what it means. Now, could this be made today? Well, because of all those reasons I've been listing about this film, and because of the Me Too movement being pretty revolutionary in thought, I don't see how anybody would want to finance a film like this nowadays. Now, having said all of that, believe it or not, I'm going to give Carnal Knowledge 5 showers out of 5. Why showers? It has to do with the Jack Nicholson character, and that's all I want to say about that. But, it is a dark film. It could trigger some people. Your mileage may vary, like I said. I find it engrossing. I really like the performances. I like the look of the film. I like how it's a character study, even if these characters are quite unpleasant. And that's what I feel about it. I really didn't plan to do an episode about Carnal Knowledge. I was just going to sit down and watch it, and just for pleasure, not thinking about doing an episode, but I had some thoughts, so that was it. So what's on this disc? This is a Criterion disc. This is the 4K and the Blu-ray, so this is a 2-disc set, but it's also available just on Blu-ray. There's a 42-page booklet here. There are several extras, including an audio commentary, which I did not listen to. There is a conversation between Jason Reitman and Mike Nichols. There's a conversation between a Mike Nichols biographer and a film critic, and a few other things. Let me put that up there so you can see that. Where can you see Carnal Knowledge? You can rent it. You can buy it. It's also streaming on Tubi right now. So feel free to leave a comment or suggestion down below there. Maybe there's another film that comes to mind immediately that you feel could never be made today. Share that with us if you'd like to. Leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Share this with your friends and neighbors. We're still trying to get to 2,000 subscribers, getting a little closer, slowly every day. Subscribing is free. Also free is we are on the Letterboxd app under the Kazdoy Closet. There's a link down below in the notes that'll take you right there, and that's where we write about other things we're watching. And what's not free is my ebook is available. It's a humorous look at 32 years of teaching public high school English. It's called True Tales from the Teacher Trenches, and it is for your Kindle. If you don't have a Kindle, you can use the free Kindle app on any device of your choice. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's included in that service at no charge. Otherwise, you'd have to go to Amazon.com and download it for $1.99. So, hope you like this episode. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.